Last week, as we began this sermon series and we began to look at Jesus, we noticed from his prayers, those of you who weren't here, that Jesus always gave thanks to the Father. Even when he's standing outside a grave, believing God for a miracle of resurrection, instead of focusing on praying for the person to come back to life, he focuses on the Father. And he says, thank you for hearing me. And thank you for always hearing me. And thank you because even right now you're hearing me. And I'm saying this publicly, not because of anything else, but so that these people here may believe, may know. And we began to see that our thanksgiving, when we live a life of gratitude, it begins to impact even the people around us to come to the place of knowing our God and beginning to focus and walk with our God and live the life that our Father would want them to live. And today, I want to look at the conversations, just a few conversations that Jesus used to have, and then we will learn from them that he had a very different mentality, and we can pick up that mentality that he had. The Bible says in the book of Philippians chapter 2 and verse number 5, and I'd like you to read that for me. Philippians chapter 2 and verse number 5. A very clear instruction to us right there that we need to pick up even as we get into the sermon for today. Philippians chapter 2 verse number 5, I believe if you are there, you are able to read. And I see pages still turning, so that tells me you have not gotten there. And some of you are still clicking on the gadget to get there, which is still okay. But if you have found it, I believe it's time for us to just go ahead and read together. Philippians chapter 2, verse number 5. If still you've not found it, I guess then we can use the screen. If all of you would look up on the screen and just read for me. What does it say? Have the same mindset as Jesus Christ had. A different version says, let this mind be in you, which also was in Christ Jesus. Have the same mindset. Verse number 6, what does it say? Even though he was equal to God, that's what the Bible is telling us, he did not consider that as something to use to his own advantage, something to grasp, something to hold on to. And I'll explain that in just a moment. Because the mindset that was in Christ Jesus is the mindset the Bible is telling us to have. Meaning, it's very possible we don't have the mindset that was in Christ Jesus. It's something that we need to purposely seek after or pursue or go after. Begin to teach ourselves and to train ourselves to have the mindset that was in Christ Jesus. Now, as we look at that, let me just show you a few mindsets that you might be having today, mindsets that we find in our generation. In fact, when what are called sociologists study our day, they find several mindsets that exist. They find several mindsets that exist in our day. And I'd like us to look at these mindsets, and then we'll ask ourselves, do they fit in, do they compare with the mindset that Jesus had? And then we'll look at the Gospels and pick up some things that Jesus said, and we will be ready to conclude our sermon for today. Found in this day and age is a fast mindset. It comes out of a generation. Sociologists have divided the mindsets in what they call generations. I'm sure you've heard of the millennial generation, isn't it? Yes. A certain group of people. And then I'm sure you've heard of Generation X. It's also a mindset. It's a group of people. And then there's a generation before Generation X that was called the baby boomers. Have you heard about that one? Yes. And then before the baby boomers, there was another generation before them called the greatest generation. And I'd like to begin with looking at just the different generations and the time spans that explain them. I don't know whether, Sheila, you have that already and you're able to put that up for us. The drawing. or the picture. But even as Sheila goes ahead to get that for us, let me just explain this a little bit. What is called the greatest generation? Why are they called the greatest generation? These are the people that were born right around World War I. Some of them were born before World War I. All the way, that's the generation, all the way to about 1945, 46. Because some of these are not very specific in the years. Remember, it's just a mindset. It's out of a study that sociologists do. It's not cast in stone. And why is it called the greatest generation? Here are some of the explanations. They were excellent, or they are regarded to be excellent team players. They are community-minded. They are assertive and energetic doers. They focused on building a nation, building nations. They did not focus on themselves or their small communities. They cared more about Kenya than they cared about our tribe or our village or our clan. In fact, in some places like Africa, what is called the greatest generation had a focus on Pan-Africanism. People like Kwame Nkrumah, Jomo Kenyatta, Nelson Mandela, who else would you put in that category? Julius Nyerere. As much as they fought for independence and led their countries in fighting for independence, they also fought for Africa. They rallied each other to fight for Africa. They saw the First World War and the Second World War, and they fought in this. It's the generation that saw the TV come in and the radio. And they believed that if you saw something wrong, you fixed it. If you saw a disobedient child walking in the neighborhood, you fixed them. And when you take them home to their father will be so excited that you fix the problem, they will welcome you for a cup of tea. And they will also fix the problem. And the child will go away saying, whether I am at home or by the side of the road or at school, wherever I am, I need to style up because my father's generation does not joke. Marriage for them was for life. When you had money, it was not for you alone. And I'm sure some of you might remember your grandfather, or maybe it was your father, who when there was a problem in the village, it was their problem also. When the children of so-and-so did not go to school, they used up your money for shoes and clothes to actually buy, to pay school fees for those other children. Are you getting what we are talking about? I told you it was the generation that lived until 1946, the greatest generation. You can see it up there. Are you able to do that? It's right at the top. The greatest generation. It's the reason why they fought for the world wars. It's the reason why they fought for independence. Just pause for a moment if you don't believe why they are called the greatest generation. And realize this. If today we were colonized in the nation of Kenya and we began fighting for the independence of this country, I can assure you people will fight for the Coast region. Actually, not the Coast region, let me correct that. They will fight for the Giriama. And the Pokomo will fight for the Pokomo. The Taita will fight for the Taita. The Kamba will fight for themselves. Are you getting me? And I even doubt, because as we look at the other generations, you begin to discover, it might be very difficult to even fight for the tribe. Because people will fight for themselves. That generation was called the greatest generation. They had a strong sense of civic duty. They were interested in morality and absolute standards of right and wrong. They were community-minded. And they believed that prosperity was for everyone. And when a community went down, it went down with everyone. When they worked in a company, you knew they were going to work there for life. They never got 2 jobs. They never looked for 2 jobs. True or false? Even when they were working, for example, in the nation of Kenya, for the white man, for the colonial master, even after independence, they continued working there. If they were a cook, they continued working as a cook until they retired. There was such a sense of dedication to a place and a cause. And then there was another generation after those. It's called the baby boomers, the generation between 1946 and 1964. Let me just look at them very quickly. The baby boomers, they believed because their fathers and their mothers had obtained this freedom for them and were fighting for independence. Some of them, and especially when you look at Kenya, you might find that some of these begin to mix up a little bit. And this is worldwide, but for example, in Kenya, you can push these ages downwards a little bit, and you will find that this generation really did not necessarily fight for independence. They are the generation who began to fight for personal prosperity. Instead of fighting for the nation, they began to fight for themselves. They began to fight for their rights. They began to fight for their families. Are you with me? They are the rock and roll generation. Let's go and party and disco till morning. They began to drink. When alcohol is something that communities used to drink together, and then they used to hold each other accountable when they would stop each other from drinking excessively, and they would send you home to ensure that you are able to go home and you're able to go listen to your sons and speak to your sons and stuff like that. The baby boomers came to the place where, let's party, let's enjoy life, things are good, freedom has been obtained, we can enjoy ourselves. Their father's generation did not believe that you had to work for money. This generation began to look for credit. They began to look for credit. And I've given this story before when I'm speaking about finances. About one time that my dad and my grandfather almost fought. And it's because my dad had been saying he'd like to take a loan. And my grandfather was so infuriated because he believed that you did not borrow. That's wrong. You worked and saved money. Do not. It's dangerous to borrow money. It's a bad thing. In fact, he called it sin. I know you find that ridiculous, that somebody would consider borrowing sin. But that was them. But the baby boomers, it's okay, you can go and look for some credit. They were self-righteous and they were self-centered. Hear those two. They were self-righteous and they were self-centered. And you do not touch their children because you are going to have a problem with them. It's my child. And so the community began being told, hey, step aside, step aside. Some of them still held a little bit to the beliefs of their fathers. But even in school, you don't punish my child until you tell me. And then I can give you permission. They ushered in free love. They had no problem sleeping around. And in that generation, babies began to be born outside of wedlock. Because it was very easy for them to say, that's not my son. Or that's not my baby. Before that, the greatest generation, if a woman accused you of being the father of the baby, the wife the woman was brought to your house and became your wife. And if you mistreated her, the community would deal with you. True or false? But the baby boomers began to say, oh well, not really, it's not mine. Technology began to kick in. And the car that their fathers would consider the car of the village became my car. Their fathers would drive in one car, 5 men from the same village. The baby boomers began to drive with their wives and children only. And once in a while, if you borrow, if you stop them and borrow the car, or maybe ask to be given a lift, they would allow you. Once in a while. Many of them do not fight for anything. Because if it's not going to benefit me, I don't have to necessarily fight for it. They talked about how their fathers fought for independence. But many of them have not fought for independence. Interestingly, even when it comes to politics, and this is a conversation I've had even with politicians, some of them will say all the things that they have done, but many of them it's because, remember I told you they are self-centered and self-righteous. It's for me. I'm fighting for me. Whereas Paul Gay and let's name them, Bildad Kagia, Achimo Neko, Jaramogi Oginga, Kongo Karumba, name them for me. Fred Kubai, and I believe I put in that category Tom Mboya also. Whereas many of them fought for independence, they weren't necessarily interested in the positions. They weren't doing it for a position. The generation after that, the baby boomers, they will fight, but if I'll get a piece of the cake. Then came the Generation X that was brought up by the baby boomer generation. Let's go back to the picture. Let's look at the age when they were born and when that generation ended. I believe it's from 1965 all the way to 1984. 1965 all the way to 1984. Yeah, it's true. And this is according to Harvard research, the Harvard University. Let me see, just for the sake of this, I'd like to see all the Generation X people. Raise up your hand, raise up your hand. I need to identify you before we say anything. All right? All the Generation X people, raise up your hands. Generation X, very individualistic. Government and big business mean little to them. They're very entrepreneurial. Oh, praise the Lord. They're very entrepreneurial. They learned, because of the commitment of their parents, they learned to arrive home from school to an empty house. They took care of themselves. They are street smart. All right? They are what? Street smart. Lived in Kilifi but would attend school in Mombasa. They knew where to get the matatu, where to buy kashata, and how to ensure the matatu guy does not take your money. In fact, they got to know, remember they're entrepreneurial, they got to know how to board a matatu and ensure you don't pay. By standing in between the seats. In a minibus, those days there were no what are they called? The small Nissans. Those ones did not exist. We grew up, I'm part of that. We grew up in minibuses and buses. And we would stand, I remember doing that, standing in between, the seats. And there's this man, I would look for a man that has a skin complexion like mine. Because if I stand there, and at some point begin to doze, the tout would not ask me for money. Because I'm with my dad. Are you getting me? And so I would save some coins. And it would allow me to do all kinds of things. I would be able to eat kashata. I'll be able to buy cools. Anyone of you ever eaten cools? Those things were put in polythene bag. I'm so glad the government has kicked those things out by banning plastic. Just a piece of paper, you seal the bottom, and you put colored water with sugar, and then you seal the top. So you buy that, it had a lot of sugar, and bite on the way home. It's hot, man. Woo! You drink that on your way home. It was beautiful. We don't know what it is to drink water from bottled, bottled water, because we would drink water in taps. It was good. It was okay. No one died. Here we are. Are you getting me? Very entrepreneurial. Government meant nothing for us. We were not interested in saving the neighborhood. We just wanted to play football or kati, or bladder. We did anything. If we do not have the ball, if mom or dad did not have the money to buy us the ball, because mom and dad were so focused in educating everyone else in the village, we looked for pieces of plastic, put them together, and with ropes made a ball for ourselves. We made cars out of wire and cardboard. And so we learned how to survive. But not how to survive together, how to survive alone. You told dad you had been beaten by the boy in the village, and dad looked at you and asked, what's wrong? Because you see, their generation believed you never fought. You fought other people. You fought enemies. You do not fight each other. But here we are. We are beginning to fight over the ball. I am the one who made it. Why did you kick me? Why did you take my cool, my shilling? I had 5 shillings, one disappeared. It must be one of you. And so we rolled each other on the floor and all, and we fought, and we learned how to be individualistic. Our parents, remember, had come to the place where they were no longer focused on morality. They were self-centered and self-righteous. And so they became a little bit loose in their character. We took it to the next level. AIDS hit our generation. We learned how to use condoms as a way of surviving, because there was no quarantine for this thing. There was no vaccine. We became obsessed with the individual rights. That's why the reason the Bill of Rights is such a big deal. Because we fought not for the rights of the community, not for the rights of a country, but for my right. It's my right. School and attending school became a problem because of the entrepreneurial thing. We took business to school. We became obsessed with labels and brands. Adidas, Nike. And then the TV became colored in our day. Our parents had no problem watching black and white. When we were growing up, TV got color. Stations began to come in. And we started, instead of playing outside, we began to retreat inside the house to watch movies. And when they came, and what they showed us is how to be selfish and self-centered, because we were slightly late in Kenya. Because if I would look at Kenya, I would actually move from 1984 to somewhere around 1988, and then I would lift the other one. Remember I told you, you can alter this a little bit. We became suspicious about people and organizations. We stopped working for one company for life. We began working for 7 or 8. Just look at the person next to you who lifted up their hand and say they're part of this generation, and ask them how many places they have been to work. Because I guarantee you they have worked for the government, they have worked for a private company. I mean, even somebody who is a policeman is thinking of quitting their job and starting a company. We learned how to survive as individuals. Then came the millennial generation. Some of them are children that we give birth to. Others were children that were born by the late generation before us. The millennial generation, or what is called the Generation Y. They put the age of this between 1984 all the way to about 2004. How many of you are part of that, or your children are part of that? Let me see. Just lift up your hand. In fact, I expect that everyone I'm preaching to today is part of that. Either our children or we are part of it. True? Because somebody who was born in 1985 is how old today? They are what age? 32. Somebody who was born in 1990, how old are they today? 27. All right. So the people I'm dealing with are in Generation X and Y, the millennials. Here's the thing. This generation grew up and found technology. They don't know what it is to queue outside a booth with coins. The ones who know are those who were born between 85 and 90. Those that were born after that, many of them might only have taken their brother or their sister or their parent to the coin box, but they never got to use it because by the time they hit 10 years, 15, they found cell phones available for everyone. It says here they don't know how to have conversations face to face. They will write it down for you in an email or they will text you. They will meet you at the corridor at work and tell you, I've just sent you an email. They have no problem with credit. In fact, they believe that when you have money, I can get it and use it, but my money is my money. They're not just individualistic, they are selfish. They grew up being told how special they are. And they believe that everything is supposed to run around for them. The greatest generation, when they showed up at church, whatever song was sung was a spiritual song and they joined in and sang. That's why they had no problem singing with hymns. The millennial generation will even look at the song that you're singing and wonder, why are you singing that song? I don't like the music. It doesn't excite me. I'm moving churches. Remember, they are beyond selfish. They have an unlimited access to information. They do not see why they cannot be part of the Baptist fellowship, the Bedside Baptist Fellowship. You understand Bedside Baptist Fellowship? Sleep for as long as you want, and then when you wake up, log on to YouTube and watch a sermon. In fact, if they're here, I don't think they came to church, but if they're here, they might be thinking, Pastor, why are you talking about this? They grew up with a lot of academic pressure to study, to prove a point. They're very hard to preach to, because when you're preaching, they are Googling, checking for the meaning of that verse and that phrase. They have a lot of expectations for everyone around them, how they're supposed to treat them, but very little expectation on themselves, because remember, they grew up being told how special they are. Everything has to fit into a schedule, and it's not your schedule, it's their schedule. When they bring their children to your school, the toilet seats need to be a certain height. Oh, my child can't come to this school, the toilets are too high. The greatest generation attended church, and because it was dusty, They used to carry a handkerchief to wipe the seat. The millennial generation will not sit down on a dirty seat. They will not wipe with their handkerchief. Who is going to wash it? They will actually not come back next week. They grew up with parents that were self-centered and self-righteous. And so they are not only self-centered and self-righteous, they have no respect for authority. They don't know what it is to stand for this flag. Some of them don't even know the words of the national anthem. I mean, I told you they didn't come to church. They are not here. But let me just hear. Let's sing together the national anthem and the Republic of Kenya. Let's go. 1, 2, go. All right, stop. The greatest generation never sings the national anthem seated down. So it's evident they are not here. Because they had respect for authority. They had respect for the country. If you show up in your village and your grandmother is still around, and you refer to the president as Ohunye, I can guarantee you will get a pinch. True or false? Even President Moi, because everyone in Kenya had a complaint against, rarely did they say Moi, they said President Moi. The baby boomers called him M1. Not the greatest generation. Are you getting me? The millennials see the world as a place where you can work 24/7. Their fathers had no problem, and their mothers had no problem working in 3, 4, 5, 7 different companies. Millennials have no problem quitting a job 2 months down the line. They can quit a job today simply because they don't like it. I mean, I showed up and the boss asked me why I came late. What's wrong with that guy? How come he doesn't remember yesterday I left the office at 7? And they will quit. And they'll be asked by mom or dad, why did you quit your job to do what? To go where? Mom, I'll just sit at home. I'll find something to do. I'll get online. Really? If I am not wrong, if the person next to you is a millennial, ask them how many places they have worked and how old they are. I can assure you, if they are 30, they have worked in almost 10 different companies. Here's where I was going with all this, because I told you I'll look at some of these things and then we'll get into the Word of God. What I'm dealing with is something has been growing in the world over time called entitlement. Entitlement. We've come to the place where our let me call them our forefathers for some of us, because if you're a millennial, somebody who was born in the 30s, really, you might not even have seen them. Okay? Because if you're born in 90 and they were born in 30, maybe they were born in 20, you do not see them. Getting me? Now here's the thing. Or even if you interacted with them, they were too old. I saw a post by somebody who is seated right here in this church, and I was like, did you see my sermon notes or what? Because we grew up seeing our parents maybe once in a while, if you didn't grow up in the village, when you went to visit, and you would go, suited up in butter bullet shoes and a short that had been bought like 4 months before. So it's already growing old. But in the village, because the others had shorts that had a few things stuck on them, a few, maybe it was khaki, but it had a blue sticker and a red sticker, and so we went to the village and we checked them out and we did not connect with them. All right? And they determined, when they saw us, they determined that when they grew up, they're going to be like us. Exactly. So that they would do the same thing. And so they grew up and they came to town. And when they came to town, they did the same with their children. They went back. And now they're going back to the village with their children with gadgets, not looking around, just looking around. And they complain, Dad, there is no network here. I don't like it in the village. You can't WhatsApp, you can't Google, you can't play games. I don't like Grandma's place. And I don't like the way Grandma speaks. How come she doesn't know English? And so what is happening over time, we became very entitled because of the freedom that they fought for. The baby boomers began that, and then it came into the Generation X, and then it came into the millennials. Let me tell you something. I am scared of seeing the children of the millennials. Because not only, remember, I was beaten by other men in the village for doing things. I remember stealing gouache in a certain home. And that man chased me to my house. I went into the bedroom and he came and got me from there. And he beat me up. And then my father came and he was told. And he told me to lie flat on the table. And that man was there checking, confirming whether it has been done properly. And my dad had a bakora. And he beat me until instead of crying, I began saying, Dad, I've gotten the lesson. I will never do it again. I promise you, Dad, I tell you, I will never do it again. And sincerely speaking, I never did it again. But this generation calls it child abuse. They say you don't beat your children when you're angry. Oh, let me tell you something. My dad. One day, he was beating me and my brother, and my grandfather heard us screaming. He came and asked in Kikuyu, wow! Whose place are you screaming? And he was telling my dad, let them come out. I will hang them on that tree. And you know our problem? We had been out playing football the whole day. We never took the cows out for grazing. My friend, that was a crime worthy of murder. My grandfather was saying, let me go and hang them on the tree. Not hang them so that they stay there. You see the way you're looking at me? You're eyeing me like, excuse me, those men need to be arrested. We are so entitled. We are so entitled that we have no problem watching TV for 5 hours every day. From 6 p.m. when you get home to 11 p.m. when you go to bed for 7 days a week. How many hours are those in a week? 35 hours. That's 1 day and a half. That means your Monday and half of your Tuesday gone watching TV. We have no problem with that. And then we show up at church and pastor preaches for more than 45 minutes and you begin fidgeting. What's wrong with this man? And yet we want revival. No wonder the only revival we can talk about is what happened in the greatest generation. Not today. Because the mindset that we have is contrary completely to the mindset that was in Christ Jesus. Even though he could have been entitled, we read that he was equal with God, but he did not hold on to it. Why? Because there was a people. The Bible says in John chapter 10 that the other sheep I have that are not yet in this fold, and I will go and I will get them. I will go and I will fight for them. I will go and I will sacrifice my life fighting for them. Not for me. Not for anyone who is in heaven. I'm not fighting for Moses and Elijah and others. I'm doing it for God's kingdom, for God's glory. He knelt on the day that he was betrayed and he prayed, Father, if it be your will, take this cup from, Father, take this cup from me. But if it be your will, then I'm ready to go through with it. That was his prayer life right there. That was his mindset. I am not doing it for me. I am doing it for my Father. I'm doing it for the kingdom. I'm doing it for God's glory. I do nothing, he said in a different place, except what I see my Father doing. There was no entitlement. It was not for me. It was for God's kingdom. It was for the people. Come unto me, all ye that are laden and that are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. And so I'm not thinking about myself, then Holy Trinity, me, myself, and I am thinking about everyone else. But this day, we are so entitled that somebody will tell you. Somebody told me this one day. Can I tell you what they told me? But Pastor, God created our bodies. And if it feels nice, why can't I go ahead and do it? And they were talking about kissing and fondling and going all the way. You understand what going all the way means? I'm not a millennial, so there are some words I can't say. If a millennial was preaching, they would have simply looked at you and said, kissing and fondling and having sex. Because I'm preaching to millennials. Are you getting me? Yeah. We do it. My father's generation, and especially my grandmother's generation, their tithe, even if they went away for 5 years, they were paid in full when they had faith in the living God. I had my grandmother telling my mother one time that because she had been sent to the granary to pick maize, and then she went and looked at the way they would keep maize in the granary to dry, and they would put some on one side and some on the other side, and there was this side where there was very nice looking maize, and this other one wasn't as good, and she picked from the nice looking one. And my grandmother, with her hands holding her ears, said, why you touched what belongs to God? Return. Mtu wa kuzangi ya Mungu. Where? And she repeated that about 4 or 5 times. And said, be careful. My children, be careful that a curse does not befall you. You give to God what is best. And then you trust him to bless you. It's the reason why you've been blessed. It's the reason why your husband has a good job. It's because I never touch what belongs to God. But then I grew up. And sincerely speaking, I didn't see that in my house, in my parents' house. And so I grew up not knowing that I'm supposed to give God what's best. When, I'm sorry to say this, when I would ask my dad for offering, he would dig into his pocket, he would remove notes and he would hold them in the hands, and then he would look for the change he had been given, and then he would give me coins. And then you can imagine what I began to do with my children. I thank God one day I gave my children, I gave my daughter a 50-bob note. And I had many other notes that I was holding, and I had God speak to me and say, how come you've never given her 1,000 shillings note? And that disturbed me. I mean, she still went and gave the 50, but that really disturbed me, and I began to pray about it. And God told me, it's because you believe that you keep the best for yourself, and you give the rest for everyone else, even me. And I began to change on that day. And some of my colleagues, because for one reason or another, sometimes we've ended up having to give them offering to take to my children when we have not remembered to do that on our way here. In fact, was it last year, the last year but one, I stopped giving them offering because I began giving them money and telling them, when you get money, you do 3 things with it. You save, you use, and you give. Okay, so you give to God, you save for yourself, and you use for your needs. And so I began to teach them, and Sarah's money is more than Grace's, so I don't give Sarah offering anymore. So Grace is the one who still says, but Dad, I save this amount, and I give this, and I use this. So I still need offering from you. And so once in a while I'll give an offering. But I swore to God after that day that I'll never give my daughter 100 shillings or 50 shillings for offering. Because God convicted me about it. Entitlement. When entitlement is allowed to take root, we move from entitlement to complaining. Because why do you complain? It's when things have not gone your way. Why do you complain? When things have not pleased you. When things do not look good. According to who? According to you. Why do we normally complain? It's because you didn't like something. You weren't happy about something. You felt like they didn't respect you or they didn't care about you. Are you getting me? For example, the whole issue of standing when the national anthem is being sung. It's because I can see it, I'm tired. Why do I even need to know it? It's an old song that was sung by other people. We want things for me. We want things for me. Why is there so much political clamor right now in Kenya? It's not because we care about this country. We actually no longer care about it. It's because of me. Everyone is thinking about themselves. Complaining creeps in. And when complaining creeps in, it's impossible to have the attitude that was in Christ Jesus. Let's read a verse in the Word of God that I'd like us to read as we just bring this to conclusion. I've quoted a lot of verses that I was supposed to read, but just allow me to read this one. Psalm chapter 37, verse number 4. The Bible says, "Delight yourself also in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Our generation reads that verse, and they interpret it to mean that the desires I have, these selfish desires that are just about me, this mindset of everything needs to revolve around for me. That really all I need to do is show up at church, wave a little bit in the air, and then God will fulfill all these desires. And really, I've had it taught that way. But what God wants us to learn out of this, even as we talk about the mindset that was in Christ Jesus, as we focus on Jesus, is we need to come to the place where our delight is in the Lord. What does that mean? What does that mean? That we are not thinking about ourselves, but we are seeking after God's will, after God's ways. Verse number 3, which is the verse before the one we have read, says, "Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on His faithfulness." Trust in the Lord. Come to the place where you no longer trust in yourself. You no longer trust in the people around you. You no longer trust in the ways and the cultures and the traditions that you find yourself in. You no longer trust in what is going on around you. Your trust is in the Lord. Then you begin to delight yourself in Him. Because you're trusting Him. You're seeing what He's doing. You're seeing what He's working out. You're seeing the purpose that He's bringing forth. You're seeing His faithfulness in situations. And then you begin to delight yourself in that. And as your delight is found in the Lord, He begins to give you those desires that are from Him. He will fulfill the desires of your heart. They're not originating from your heart. They are originating from Him. Now pause for a moment. Just think about this. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. In other words, the desires that will be found in your heart will be the desires the Lord has given you. You didn't hear me. You didn't hear me. Isn't that correct English? Delight yourself. Let me use Ken Wahina, because Ken, even if he gets angry and everything, the Lord will speak to him and we'll sort it out. Delight yourself in Edward Munene to the point where the things that you desire and begin to pursue are the things He gives you. Are you understanding? That's what the Bible is saying. That's what the Bible is saying. You don't walk around and saying, "But why did Pastor give me a bottle of water that is almost finished? How come He did not give me the one that was unopened?" Are you getting me? He's not thinking about himself. He's delighting himself. Whatever it is that I give Him, He's excited. Wow! He gave me something. Can you imagine? That's what He's supposed to to happen? You get that your desires begin to come from the one that you're trusting and depending upon, the one that you have given yourself to completely. Verse number 5 says, commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he shall bring it to pass. Commit your way to the Lord and trust also in him. There's a progression here. There's a progression here. Verse number 6, he shall bring forth your righteousness as the light and your justice as the noonday. The things that he's doing in you, as you focus on him, as you trust in him, he's doing things in you. He's doing things in you. It's not your own righteousness. It's the righteousness that the Bible says comes from God by faith. He begins to put that in you, and then he causes it to begin to shine out. And when people look at you, they're like, oh my goodness, that's a righteous person. Ken is a righteous man. But it's not your own righteousness. It's coming from the Lord. The progression here, and I am done. You and I have come to the place where we trust in the Lord. Not in our own ways, not in our culture, not in our day, not in our entitlement. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. In all your ways, acknowledge him. Trust in the Lord. Let me just end this right here. Because when you do this, my friends, entitlement will be kicked out, because you're trusting in God, you're depending on God, you're waiting on God to be the one that gives you whatever it is that you need. Are you with me? And so your attitude is checked right there. It's no longer you that live, Paul said, but Christ lives in you. And the life you now live in the flesh, you live by the faith of the Son of God who loved you and gave himself for you. You trust in the Lord. You depend upon him. And then you delight yourself in him. You do not hold on to your own ways. You're not happy because things went your way, but you're happy because of God. Your focus is on him completely. Are you with me? And then you find yourself at a place where you no longer have a way. Because when you commit your way to the Lord, you no longer have a way. You can only walk in his way. When you do that, my friend, things will begin to radically change. What I'm saying, I hope it impacts even the way you work. Because here's the thing. Why have you changed jobs the way that you've changed? Why are you even thinking of changing jobs? Is it because of the money or because of God? Because we need to come to the place where we begin our focus being on God. We begin to live life for God, for God's purpose, for God's kingdom, for God's will. Throwing out entitlement and saying, God, I want to serve you. I want to be who you want me to be. You want to be rich? For who? Let the Lord be the one that gives you riches. Let the Lord be the one that directs and guides you. Where you work, how you work, what you do. Let the Lord be the one, because you trust in him. We just read those things from the Bible. Let me just give them to you. You're saying, Pastor, you didn't give us point. Trust in the Lord. The second one, delight yourself in the Lord. Number 3, commit your ways to the Lord. And then God will begin to bring forth all these things that are inside of you that he has put. He'll begin to bring them out, to expose them, and cause you to stand on the world and be all that he wants you to be. Why do people find themselves at a place where they're walking in sin? Penina, come and conclude this. Why do people find themselves walking in sin? It's because many times we want to do things our way. It's an entitlement. We want to do things our way. Ni mimi nataka. Lakini jameni, wacheni nimalize kwa Kiswahili. Ikiwa ni wewe unataka, basi utajipata uko na takataka.